Chapter 3 The Final Selection. The waning moon cast an eerie glow over Mount Fujikasan. As Tanjiro approached the gathering point, his body ached from the grueling 7-day test, but his spirit remained unbroken. The mask Urokodaki had given him felt like a talisman, a reminder of all he had learned. As he neared the meeting place, Tanjiro's keen nose picked up the scent of other humans. Fear, determination, and a hint of blood. He wasn't alone in this final test. A group of young aspirants had already gathered, their faces, a mix of anxiety and resolve. Among them, two figures stood out to Tanjiro. The first was a boy with bright yellow hair, who seemed to be shaking uncontrollably. "I want to go home," he whimpered. "I don't want to die." The second was a wild-looking youth with a boar's head mask, who was pacing restlessly, muttering about becoming the strongest. Before Tanjiro could approach either of them, a young woman in a butterfly-patterned haori appeared. "Welcome, candidates," she said, her voice gentle yet authoritative. "I am Mikomo, and I will explain the rules of the final selection." The aspirants fell silent, hanging on her every word. "For the next 7 days, you will be confined to this mountain," Mikomo continued. "It is inhabited by demons, that the demon slayers have captured alive and released here. Your task is simple: survive, and slay as many demons as you can." A collective shudder ran through the group. Tanjiro felt his heart race but steeled his resolve. "The demons on this mountain are unlike any you may have encountered before," Mikomo warned. "They have grown strong from devouring humans, who failed this test in years past. Do not underestimate them. Those who survive the 7 days will earn the right to become demon slayers," Mikomo concluded. "May fortune favor you all." With those words, she vanished as suddenly as she had appeared, leaving the candidates to face their destiny. Tanjiro took a deep breath, centering himself as Urokodaki had taught him. He thought of Nezuko, of his promise to protect her and find a cure. Failure was not an option. As the candidates dispersed into the forest, Tanjiro caught the scent of a demon nearby. He gripped his Nichiren sword tightly and moved forward. The first night was a chaos of screams, and the sickening sound of flesh being torn. Tanjiro fought demon after demon, each more terrifying than the last. His training with Urokodaki saved him countless times, but even so, he sustained injuries. One particularly vicious demon, with arms like scythes, nearly took Tanjiro's head off. He dodged at the last second, feeling the wind of the demon's strike ruffle his hair. Taking a deep breath, Tanjiro focused his energy. "Water breathing, third form flowing dance," he cried out, his body moving in a fluid, dance-like motion. His sword traced graceful arcs through the air, leaving streams of water in its wake. The demon, caught off guard by the sudden change in Tanjiro's movements, couldn't keep up. With a final, decisive strike, Tanjiro severed its head. The demon's body crumbled to ash, leaving Tanjiro panting but victorious. By dawn, the number of candidates had already dwindled significantly. Tanjiro, bloodied but unbowed, pressed on. Days passed in a blur of constant vigilance and brutal combat. Tanjiro's resolve was tested time and time again. There were moments when exhaustion threatened to overwhelm him, when the relentless attacks of the demon seemed never-ending. But each time he felt close to giving up, he thought of Nezuko, of his family, of all the people he could save if he became a demon slayer. On the 4th night, Tanjiro encountered the yellow-haired boy again. He was cornered by a particularly vicious demon, paralyzed with fear. Without hesitation, Tanjiro leapt into action. "Water breathing, second form water wheel," he cried, his body spinning as he struck the demon with all his might. The demon howled in pain but didn't fall. It turned its attention to Tanjiro, giving the other boy a chance to escape. "Run!" Tanjiro shouted, dodging the demon's claws by a hair's breadth. But to his surprise, the boy didn't flee. Instead, he closed his eyes and began to tremble even more violently. Then, in a flash of movement almost too fast to see, he struck. Thunder breathing, first form thunderclap and flash. The demon's head went flying, its body crumbling to ash. Tanjiro stared in amazement. That was incredible. "What's your name?" Zenitsu, the boy stammered, looking as surprised as Tanjiro felt. I did it?" Before they could talk more, another demon's roar split the air. They nodded to each other and moved on, now watching each other's backs. As they moved through the forest, Tanjiro found himself explaining his water-breathing techniques to Zenitsu, who listened with rapt attention. In return, Zenitsu shared what he knew about thunder breathing, though he admitted that he only really knew the one form. Their conversation was cut short by the arrival of another demon. This one was different from the others they had faced. It moved with a fluid grace that belied its monstrous appearance. Well, the demon purred, its voice sending chills down Tanjiro's spine. "Two little morsels, all alone in the dark. How delightful." Zenitsu let out a small whimper, but to Tanjiro's surprise, he didn't run. Instead, he took up a fighting stance beside Tanjiro, his body still trembling but his eyes focused on the demon. "We're not alone," Tanjiro said firmly, his grip tightening on his sword. "We have each other, and we're not going to be your dinner." What followed was the most intense battle Tanjiro had faced yet. The demon was faster and stronger than any they had encountered before, its attacks coming in a relentless flurry that kept both boys constantly on the defensive. Tanjiro and Zenitsu fought back to back, their breathing techniques complementing each other in ways neither had expected. Where Tanjiro's water breathing allowed him to flow around the demon's attacks, Zenitsu's thunder breathing let him strike with lightning speed in the brief openings Tanjiro created. Just when it seemed the demon might overwhelm them, a new voice cut through the night. "Out of my way, weaklings." Beast-breathing Fang 3, devour. A blur of motion shot past Tanjiro and Zenitsu, slamming into the demon with incredible force. It was the boar-masked boy from earlier, moving with a feral grace that seemed almost inhuman. The demon, caught off guard by the sudden appearance of a third opponent, couldn't react in time. The boar-masked boy's attack tore through its neck, severing its head in one clean motion. As the demon's body crumbled to ash, the boar-masked boy turned to Tanjiro and Zenitsu. "Humph," he grunted, "you two are pathetic. How'd you even make it this far?" Despite the insult, Tanjiro couldn't help but feel grateful. "Thank you for the help," he said sincerely. "I'm Tanjiro, and this is Zenitsu." "What's your name?" "Inosuke," the boy replied gruffly. "Remember it. I'm going to be the strongest demon slayer ever." Zenitsu, who had been catching his breath, looked at Inosuke with a mix of awe and fear. "You're crazy strong," he said, "but also just crazy. Who fights demons wearing a boar mask?" Inosuke bristled at this. "This is my face," he shouted, though Tanjiro was pretty sure that couldn't be true. Before the argument could escalate, Tanjiro stepped in. "We should stick together," he suggested. "We're stronger as a team." Inosuke scoffed at this. "I don't need anyone," he declared. "I'm strong enough on my own." But despite his words, he didn't immediately leave. And as the final days of the selection wore on, the three boys found themselves fighting together more often than not. Tanjiro's calm leadership, Zenitsu's surprising bursts of courage, and Inosuke's wild strength formed a formidable team. The final day of the selection arrived. Tanjiro, Zenitsu, Inosuke, and a handful of other survivors gathered at the meeting point, exhausted but alive. Makomo reappeared, a small smile on her face. "Congratulations," she said. "You have survived the final selection. You are now demon slayers." Relief washed over Tanjiro, followed quickly by a sense of purpose. He had taken the first real step on his journey to save Nezuko, and protect others from the fate that had befallen his family. As the new demon slayers descended the mountain, each lost in their own thoughts, Tanjiro's resolve burned brighter than ever. He had passed the final selection, but he knew this was just the beginning. The real battle, against the demons that threatened humanity, and to find a cure for Nezuko, was about to begin, and Tanjiro Kamado was ready to face it, head-on, with the breath of water as his guide and his unwavering determination as his strength.